how do you go about product research when you're trying to launch a product on a small budget? That's exactly what we're talking about today as we dive into part 2 of Project 1K, where I'm not just telling you how to launch a product, I'm showing you how to launch a product on a small budget. That's right, in today's video, we're diving into the second part of a little mini series I'm doing called Project 1K. Each week, I'm recording a session live inside of our Brand Builder University community and putting highlights here for you on YouTube, showing me walking through the Brand Builder blueprint, the 8-step process in order to launch your first profitable product on Amazon. Now, I get a lot of people saying to me, Ben, how do I launch for a low budget? And whilst I do think that e-commerce is something that you should be willing to invest in, and I think you will always get more options and bigger results if you're able and willing to invest a bit more, I do know that for some people, you're just looking for a change, you're looking to try something out, and you want to try it on a small budget. So I thought, because I've got sort of 6 to 8 weeks while I'm waiting for another project to go live, I thought I would do this as a bit of a case study to show you my thought process, how I would go about it if I was launching for a product under £1,000. But instead of just if I were doing it, I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to document it for you each week, recording this live so that our members can kind of ask questions and watch the whole process as we go. I will speed up a little bit. This session was over an hour long as I went through some product research, started filtering through, sharing my thought process. So we'll cut and make sure it's just the salient points that are in this video so you're not on YouTube all day. But listen, I hope you find it helpful. If you are someone that wants to launch profitable products on Amazon and build future-proof brands, then make sure you are subscribed and you'll be well on your way. But without further ado, let's jump into the live session and hopefully you find this helpful, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so what you're seeing before you now, guys, for those that don't know, this is Helium 10, and this is a suite of tools, super helpful if you're going to sell on Amazon, build a brand. You've got, product research tools, keyword research, listing optimization, a whole bunch of things in here which you can dig into. There will be a link in the description below that you can pick that up, grab a discount. With that, you can either get 10% off for life or 50% off your first month, and definitely dig into to these tools. And I'm going to be showing you the black box tool. This is the main product research tool. There are a bunch of other ways you can do product research, but I'm going to be showing you what I believe to be the quickest and most efficient way to do some product research. So when you come into black box, you've got these tabs at the top here. You've got products, keywords, competitors, niche, products, targeting. What most people do is they go for products because it's like the default and they start there. However, if you put the criteria that we're going to put into products, it's going to come up with potential products to sell that meet the criteria. However, they are isolated products. And what that means is when you go into that market, you may actually find that that was an isolated product that was doing really well for some kind of extreme circumstances. There may be special circumstances, like they just launched that product. It's kind of artificially inflated right now. And because it's got like low reviews, it's actually going to drop down. It's going to sink like a stone after they've done their launch. And so we don't want to just look at products. Personally, I just completely ignore this tab. I go straight to the keywords tab, because what the keywords tab does is when you put in the criteria we're going to put in, it assesses the entire market. And when it gives you these suggestions, it's an aggregation of the data across the whole market. So I think it's far quicker than any of the other methods, and gives you the results you need. Okay, so just for the purposes of today, I'm going to ignore search volume for the sake of what we're doing here. I'm going to go straight to monthly revenue. Now, this is where I talk about the criteria that you have to be kind of aware of, that you can't come in here and be like, yeah, I'm going to get a product that's making 5K a month, baby. On £1,000 or less investment just ain't going to work. Like, if it does, you're going to sell out of the product in 2 weeks. If you've got a product you've got a 2-day lead time on, lead time being the amount of time it takes to get manufactured, and then a 10-day shipping time, yeah, great, go for your life. But that just doesn't really happen. If you're sourcing even from the UK or locally to wherever you are, it can often take weeks to make the product and then another, few days to deliver it. So best case scenario, 30-day turnaround from when you pay your money to when it arrives at the door. And this is maybe not as important at the start, but when you go to reorder, this has a real big implication on your cash flow. And so we want a product that we can get enough inventory that we can sell for about twice the amount of lead time and manufacturing altogether. If we can find a product that's going to take us 2 weeks to get manufactured and 2 weeks to get shipped by air, so a month in total, we really want to try to order 2 months worth of product, because then we can start to sell through our products And by the time we've started to sell through our products and proven the concept and proven the product, then we can reorder the same amount of products again with the funds we've made from that initial amount of products. It's not always going to work out as neatly and ideally as that, because life is life. And again, the economics of it sometimes don't work as neatly as that. However, that is the kind of the ideal scenario that we're working towards. So if I've got £1,000 to launch, and bearing in mind, I'm going to want to hold some back, at least a couple of £100, ideally for a trademark and for a few other little bits that might come up. I'm going to do the photos myself just to keep costs down. I'm going to do the listing myself. So the main thing is trademark, maybe barcodes, but I might do GTIN exemption. We'll have to have a look at that. Again, it depends on what comes up with the product. But say I'm going to looking at sort of $1,000, with Chinese manufacturers particularly, they'll be looking at dollars. So around £700, £800 if I'm pushing it out a little bit. So that means that I'm going to be able to order, if I get a product that's going to cost me $2 or $3 to make, I'm going to be able to order around 300 units. Because I'm spending sort of $2 to $3, it's going to be sales price in the region of maybe 10 to 15 pounds. And so if I'm going to be ordering maybe 300 units, I want that to last, 2 months, because I'm going to be aiming for something I can airship. So therefore, what does that equate to? 2 months, 150 sales per month. So revenue would be 150 times sort of 10 on what's it, 1,500. So you'd be looking at somewhere in the region of sort of 1,500 to 3,000 pounds a month in revenue on this product. I'm probably going to shoot a little bit lower, if I'm honest. I'm going to shoot a little bit lower than that, and I'm going to include things that are around about 900 a month. You might look at that and think, well, what is even the point? But if you're starting on a low budget, the way you're going to easily get discouraged is if you try and look too high. You try and look for something that's high and you realize you can't get to that level. However, if you could launch something and start making £500 a month, if you got started and took the steps to get started, rather than kept doubting whether it's possible and only invested a little bit of money, but you started making £500 a month, listen, it's not going to change your life, but it might change your mindset. And that's going to really help you take steps forward. And so someone once said, don't despise the day of small beginnings. Start small and build up from there. Realize that obviously it'll take a bit more time to do that, but don't not get started because you're starting small. And like I said before, I'm going to be showing you a bigger launch. We're in the process of, launching a brand, and I'll document the journey of that for you too when we launch products in sort of 6 or 7 weeks. And, we're going to be all up investing about 20 grand in that to get that launched. And so that's going to be the other end of the spectrum. And so I believe in investing big. I'm not someone that's like, oh, play it small and just don't take any risks. But just for those that are that way inclined, you can definitely do it at this level too. Or let's go 2,200 just to catch anything. I like to do it just above or below the extremes, just to catch any that other people might not, because they're setting on the, the round numbers. So then price, I'm going to go £9. I would never want to sell anything for £9 if at all possible, unless I can source it like £1. But if someone else is selling something successfully at £9, I might be able to improve on it that allows me to sell it for 11, 12, 13 pounds, right? So I want to catch it in there to catch any potential ideas. And then max, I'm going to go at, I'm going to say 18 pounds. You're not going to want to go too high with this. Otherwise, you're just going to get priced out of the market. Okay, so review count. Now, generally speaking, I'm pretty aggressive with this, and I don't mind going a bit higher than most would, just because I think, we teach some good tactics. We've got some good strategies. And so we can go into sort of relatively competitive markets. But if we are on a lower budget, then we are going to have to, be cheaper on the sort of the PPC side, on our launching strategies. We're not going to have loads of money to deploy into a launch. Initially, I'm going to try around the 50 mark. So I'll nudge it up to 55, again, just to catch any that are just over 50, that people that are searching up to 50, because that's what maybe someone on YouTube told them they're not going to catch. Review rating, this one I always fill in, because what we want to do is we want to try and improve on products. And so I'm going to put in here 4.5, which means that average across the market. Remember, this is keywords. So it's going to be the average of a market. It's going to mean that there's lots of opportunity for improvement in the market. Now, if we get too many results, I might bring that down to 4 in a minute to try and reduce the number of results, because that's a really good way of being able to know that there's opportunity to differentiate. Coming down into the advanced filters, I am going to, first and foremost, shipping size tier, just choose small standard size. I just can't afford to do large standard size at this budget level. And then categories, right? And this is, I'm probably going to go through these one by one just because otherwise the results could be overwhelming. Generally speaking, I would say baby products might not be great because you may have to get testing done. That may be expensive, although there might be something small and light. So let's give it a go. We'll give it a go. Beauty, yeah, maybe let's give that a go. Home and kitchen, let's go with that. Pet supplies, I feel like that'll be super saturated at the low end, but we give that a go. Let's give that one a go. Okay, so I'm gonna go with those 5 categories. 25, all right, we're in business. Prints in frames. I feel like this would be super subjective, like what people would like. As you can see, like from the main first page, there's so much variation with this. It's like it would be hard to know where to pitch this. Super variable. So I'll leave that one for now. Kylie signed disco. No, we'll leave that one. George Michael calendar. British garden birds. So I'm going to avoid that because we're not going to look and sell books. Another thing as well, actually, that I probably would do is sort it by monthly revenue. And what I would probably do, I would go into the exclusions, exclude keywords, and I would exclude Christmas because I don't want that. Sanitizer, Derma Roller Bloomsbury. I'm pretty sure Derma rollers themselves are pretty saturated, but we'll have a look at it. More wall stuff, and that is the end of that list. I was expecting a few more, to be honest, so I will adjust maybe the review count up and put that to 55, 105. I'm expanding the other criteria, so I'll probably just narrow that down a little bit because I don't want to have hundreds and hundreds to go through. Formula One merchandise, you'd have to get licensing for that, so I'm not going to do that. 3D pen book, I know that 3D pens are patented, so I'm not going to bother with that. Counted cross-stitch kits for adults, that's similar to the one here, so we'll cross-compare those. Oh, and another one, clip-on fringe. Come on. I'm hoping that I find something that I had just no interest in whatsoever. Because I talk about this whole anti-passion thing sometimes, that you don't want your passions to get in the way of what you choose or skew the data in your mind. So I'm hoping that I'll find something that's just really boring. I have no interest in whatsoever. I want to find something that's brandable. You can build a brand around it. So probably gas range protectors. Some people would say, sell those boring kind of products. And maybe if you have a bunch of other household goods you could sell, then maybe sewing patterns for kids. That's interesting. We had an adult one before, so maybe we can look at a kids one. Okay, so I've got probably 8 or 9 here, so I'm going to go through each of these one by one. So remember, we're going for relatively low demand, relatively low competition, things that we can improve on, small and light. Those are the main things we're looking at. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just run Helium 10's Chrome extension, use this one here, X-Ray, because X-Ray is going to sort of summarize all of the product data. The Helium 10 Chrome extension is going to basically aggregate all of this data for you on the first page, because remember, it's not just about an isolated product. We want to know, can we come into this whole market and compete? First thing we want to do is you just want to make sure that there is consistent demand. It's not just temporary demand. And you can look on Google Trends, you can just have some common sense if it's around a certain holiday of the year. But one of the best ways to do it is actually to come into this Helium 10 Chrome extension, and you see in this sales column here, there's a little chart. And so, we're looking at one here that's doing 1,500 a month on 17 reviews. I'm going to come in and I'm going to click that chart, and that is going to show me their sales consistency over a period of time. Defaults to 30 days. But I'm going to click all time to get the scope of however long it's been available. And I can see it's pretty consistent. You see this black average line, the trend line, is consistently going up. Now, of course, these sales are only 2, 3 a day, 2, 3, 4 here, coming up a few bits. But this is the kind of level we're playing at, right? We don't want something that's selling 10, 15, 20 a day, because we're not going to be able to keep up the stock. $16.99. If I could get 3 sales a day, that's nearly £50 a day. That's £1,500 a month. If we're, say, working on 30% profit margins, which we'll check in a minute, that's going to be £450 a month of profit. So I would take this to the next phase, which is going to be able to make sure that we can improve on what is already available. So what I'm going to do in order to do that is I'm going to look at one that's got quite a lot of reviews, that's doing quite well. The reason I chose the one with lots of reviews is because that's going to give me the most data to be able to compare. Because one of the best ways you can look to differentiate, and I'm going to try and differentiate with my products that I'm going to launch with Project 1K, is by looking at the reviews and seeing what customers are already saying about the products that are already there. And if you go to the Helium 10 Chrome extension, you can do this thing called Review Insights. And I'm going to discount the 5-star reviews because they're obviously going to be positive. I'm just going to go for the ones that are less than 5 stars. And what you can do is you can come over to Review Analysis, and you can see all of the most commonly used phrases. Now, there doesn't seem to be loads here, which might not be super helpful. And a lot of them are in French. Not worth the money, absolute waste. I've just paid for a petal pretty much. Okay, so they're saying it's not really worth the money. That for me would give me a little bit of alarm bells, like how saleable is this kind of product? Gas range protectors. One of the things I would look at for something like this is if everyone on the first page is just selling a number of these products. To me, that suggests that there isn't really any way that you can differentiate with this. So I'm probably going to avoid that. Just for now, for the sake of time, see if we can find something a bit better. Clip-on fringe. Now, this is interesting. This would be like way out of my comfort zone because I have no idea about fringes. I mean, generally speaking, me personally, I would avoid it for that reason because I don't have a single clue about it. See, I talk about the anti-passion approach, but I feel like this would be the first thing that hits me straight away is the rating is horrendously low on all of these. I don't know whether to be excited by that or worried by that. The demand is pretty good spread. There's 5 of those top 10 that have all got over £1,000 a month. Again, might not sound loads, but remember our small budget since July, trending upwards. All of those sort of starting relatively recently suggest to me that maybe it's a relatively new trend, which I personally would not want to get into. Reason being is because, you don't want to get into something that peaks and then falls off and then you're stuck with loads of inventory when it peaks. Okay, so this was just the frames. So the only challenge with this is what you could actually do to differentiate, right? If you're not selling the print, you're just selling the frames, what is there to differentiate on? You have to look through this stuff because sometimes the keywords that come up can be a bit deceiving. You've got basically 2 blank frames there. Everything else has got prints on. So Joy Sunday cross-stitch kits. I imagine Joy Sunday is a brand, is it? It's either a brand or a style. These are literally every single one is Joy Sunday, which suggests that it might be brand dominated. So what I'm going to do is actually just check cross-stitch kits. And so I imagine then they're not going to be as brand dominated. Yeah, okay, Joy Sunday is just that one there. Okay, so the big thing I wanted to check was Joy Sunday going to be dominating this? But the actual cross-stitch kits, there's only one. If you're looking on a low budget as well, it is looking at more long-tail keywords that are maybe lower search volume, that are less competitive, but also still do have some higher search volume keywords so that you can grow into them. See how that's pretty consistent. Like the trend line since November 2019, it's got obviously some peaks around. This would have been around lockdown because of COVID. Everyone wanted to cross stitch apparently then, and then it looks like they went out of stock, but then they come back in and it's pretty consistent, trending upwards since the start of 2020. So yeah, this one looks the demand looks pretty consistent to me, so I'd be happy with that. So I'm going to press on with that. The next thing I would be looking at is what can I improve with this? So review count, I'm going to look for the ones with the most reviews because it's going to give me the most amount of data. So it looks like there's different startup kits, maybe not loads of room to improve, but of these guys with over 100 reviews, not a single one with 5 stars. So definitely presents an opportunity there. So I'm going to go into this one and I am going to look at the review insights to see if there are, potential possibilities for differentiation. I did not receive any of the extras. I got thread, I would not recommend. Plastic hoops, useless. They will not close over material, so the screws will not turn. So not loads of ways there to differentiate. Let's take a look at maybe another one. As I'm looking at these, I'm thinking like one of the ways to potentially differentiate is there's a lot of younger people that are now getting into this kind of thing. It's a shame considering this is meant to be beginners. There wasn't much information about what I needed to do. So there's a good way to potentially differentiate to really help with beginners. For beginners, this kit is perfect. So, okay, maybe not. The thing that initially attracts me to this one was when we were looking through, there was quite a few different search terms that were related to this. So my next step really would be to look at those different search terms, see the kind of volume. And if it has got a broad range of search terms where the competition is relatively low, this could be a good one because the more search options you have, the more possibilities you have. So my only concern with this one is the design aspect of it. But I think that's probably the most promising one I've looked at yet. I feel like that's quite brandable in terms of, because there'd be a lot of people aiming at an older audience. Maybe we could aim at like a younger audience. Once we looked at demand and competition and ways to differentiate with these cross-stitch kits, we've got the ability to, new designs, some other little things like that. The next thing we want to look at is profitability. And so I pulled up Helium 10 Chrome extension, the profitability calculator. And the good thing about this product is it is super light, 0.1 kilograms, 100 grams. And so if we were to estimate the cost of shipping per kilogram, which is what air shipping is calculated by, generally speaking, it's about around $6 per kilo for air shipping. And we've got a price here at $9.99. Let's assume, just because we're going to do a good job of differentiation, going to be, good marketers, we could increase this a little bit to $10.99. Unit manufacturing cost, that's what I'll confirm obviously next week. It's pretty basic, I reckon we'll be in that ballpark. I'm going to be running this through a VAT registered business, so I'm going to account for VAT, which is going to make my metrics worse. If I put in 0% VAT in here, that's a 46% profit margin. I'm going to run it through with VAT because of this business is VAT registered. Still running at 36%. So I know if I can hit all those numbers, which I'll obviously check next week when we look at sourcing, there's a good potential for it to be profitable. Okay, so having spent the last, whatever it is, hour and a bit walking through this and just looking at different options, obviously we are playing in a lower price range. And so there are going to be some challenges with that. The main three that I'm looking at that have the potential, proving consistent demand, the competition I believe is not too high. There's maybe room for improvement, profitability, that kind of thing. The top three, I think, just from my research, and it is only an hour, right? And you could obviously spend way more on this, but like I said, I'm short on time. I want to just get something going, and so I'm going to do my due diligence, but at the same time, I'm not just going to, endlessly, try and find the perfect product. And so when I'm looking at these dried flowers for nails, I feel like it's, growing in popularity and probably not like crazy trending. Style could change for this quite quickly. Same with bangs and fringes and this kind of fringe, like that could be out in the next season. And so my worry with that one, although the numbers look good and the demand is, the right kind of level, the competition is not too crazy, it's brandable, definitely like in terms of scalability, it's there because you could offer other products. My worry is it going sort of in and out of fashion. So I think from the maybe 20 products we looked at, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig deeper into these cross-stitch kits. And my only concern with it is like the wall art, right? There's different designs with it. Obviously, we can just kind of ignore Christmas ones because it's not just Christmas ones that are selling. And we did look at the demand and it was relatively consistent over time, not just over Christmas. So yeah, probably going to look into that one. My reasoning for pursuing this one would be like the demand's a good level. There's plenty in the sort of, 1,000 to 2,000 revenue range. That means that I can kind of come in there and do that same revenue. The competition is not too high because there's plenty in here with double-digit reviews. There's opportunity for differentiation because people were saying about like the quality of the rings and making something maybe aimed at a bit of a younger demographic, whereas with posters you'd have to be quite specific. We were looking at wall art before. That was quite a popular thing that came up in this category, in this price range. But you're going to have to be quite specific with the designs on that to make it, what the people are going to enjoy because it's going to be on their wall. Whereas a cross-stitch kit is a little less dependent on that because they may stitch it and then not necessarily put it on their wall. It may just be to learn and to practice. So for like a starter kit, the design, I feel, just looking at it now, the success of it will be a little bit less dependent on the unique design. And so, yeah, in terms of scalability, definitely plenty of potential other options to look at that. We could do like a kids line. We could do different seasons, once we grow. So I think there's potential with this. And so what I'm going to do, my next steps before we dive into week 3, because week 3, stage 3 is all about sourcing. So what I want to do before I'm going to source is I want to have a clear idea of the kind of differences I want to kind of include in this, the improvements I want to make. So what I'm going to do between now and when we record next week's stage is I'm going to purely spend maybe half an hour or an hour, probably going to call my mum. I don't know if I'll log that time because that's calling my mum, right? Because I think she does knitting at least. So I'll find out from her, see what she does and ask some questions, do some research, come up with some ideas. And then next week we'll look at seeing if we can find someone that's going to be able to produce this for us quickly. The good thing is I imagine this is really light. And then when it comes to scalability, anybody that's interested in this kind of product is going to be potentially interested in other cross-stitch kits, other craft kits, that kind of thing. So there's definitely the potential there. Then the final check is just possibility. Will there be any restrictions on this? The only thing that I'm thinking is maybe just if I do go for like an eco-friendly like wood or something like that, any kind of importation issues with the materials. I honestly, I can't imagine the needles maybe. Like safety, honestly, I can't imagine. But yeah, I'll have to think about that throughout this week. So this week, my actions are going to be finding more ways to differentiate, having a bit more of a research into that, just making sure that there aren't any restrictions on this kind of product. And then next week, we will dive into sourcing. So that's obviously been a bit of a longer one than the first one because product research is one of the key things. And I was obviously just working there and thinking out loud. So hopefully that helped in some way, and you saw kind of real behind the scenes, not kind of done for show. This is actually me doing it. I'm actually going to source a product like this, whether it's these cross-stitch kits or not. But once I've done a bit more research, we'll be able to know for sure. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed that sort of sense of the process. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you are subscribed, and so you know when we're coming up with new ones. We'll be out again with an update next week for part 3. But for now, I'll see you real soon.